All right, so welcome to the N-Central Essentials, exploring the tools and features for efficient IT operations. Okay, let's begin. Okay, so this content may contain forward-looking statements regarding future product plans and development efforts. What that basically means is if I talk about roadmap items or something in the future that could be coming, you cannot take that as a promise to deliver. Again, I'm not the executive VP of product. Product plans and priorities obviously do change. Okay, so let's go through. Who am I? My name, if you haven't been on a nerd boot camp, I do want to say welcome. My name is Jason Murphy. I'm one of the 7 head nerds here at Enable. I was a former SolarWinds sales engineer, and I worked with SolarWinds Enable back in the day for about 5 years. I then left to go live the MSP dream, and I went to go work at a top 20, huge behemoth MSP as the technology and security leader there, and I did some cool stuff with them. I then left and became the director of managed services for a smaller MSP. All in all, I've been using N-Central for about a decade. All right, so, okay, I'm not going to read the entire agenda slide. We've got a lot of stuff to do today. I want to kind of take you through direct support, remote control, domain user management, and a lot of the key features in terms of being able to use N-Central as a troubleshooting tool. That's really what all of this is about. All right, so quick introduction. You will need stuff for this course. All right, so what we're going to need is N-Central. Let's go back. You're going to need N-Central. And again, I do recommend if you want to take any notes or open up WordPad or Notepad++ and jot down some stuff, it might be handy for you later on. Okay. Now, let's talk about direct support. Direct support is the tools menu. I call it the toolbox. So it is direct support. Direct support is the actual name for this, but you can see in the column here, let's go back. You can see in the column, it says tools. So I actually call it the direct support. What is it? Okay, so what this tools menu does is allow you on your devices to remotely hop into a bunch of background access to the device, right? Natively. All of it's right there at your fingertips, so you can do some cool stuff. Again, the tools menu is available on Mac and Windows devices. It is not on Linux just yet. I'm hoping that changes. Allow you to troubleshoot devices without disrupting the end user. And if you've used a lot of other remote control tools, a lot of these features are built in. In fact, a lot of these features are built into our remote control tool. So the good news here is you can do this natively without remote control. Okay. Now, why should you use it? Use initially in place of remote control sessions to troubleshoot day-to-day or end user issues. You can do things like stop or start services, kill processes, enable and disable applications on startup, resolve printer issues, run scripts on demand. I have a brand new pair of glasses, actually. They're probably about 2 weeks old or so. I'm still struggling to be able to use them. So sometimes I'm having a bit of a struggle reading. I normally can't read. Okay, so let me open up N-Central really quickly. And let's get to it. So put my headset down here. Here, let me go 1 second. And I will log in. 1 second. Let me get my fancy code here. Normally, I'm already logged into N-Central, so I apologize for not having this ready to go. Okay, now we're logged in, and I'm going to go to my lab, which is right about here. And you will see the direct support window. Now, again, I have this sorted based on all of my other devices. So what I'll do here is focus on my servers. Okay, so here they all are. And then from here, what I can do is get into direct support. I can start supporting my end user without having to interrupt. So say something's not running, or you're getting a support ticket or what have you. Pardon me. A little quick sip of water. There we go. I can now hop into this device and again, look at what services are running and start troubleshooting. So for example, what I can do here is now filter. I can literally say probe. I want to actually check the probe service. Now this device doesn't have a probe, so I can see it'll pull up all of the agents that are running on automation manager, right? So it's all there running in the background, and I can now start doing stuff to that, right? So if I have something like PME, maybe I want to stop or restart. So on this device, I could simply restart. And as you can see, it's doing this little, there we go, really, really quickly. Within 5 to 10 seconds, it usually works. It really depends on the service. I don't know if you've noticed, even in Windows when restarting services, but sometimes they can take a little while. But once it's completed, you will see the green bar and you're good to go. Okay. Now I can also see things like processes. So if I wanted to come in here and say an end user calls in and says, I don't know where my Chrome icon is on my desktop. I may have deleted it, or I put it in the recycle bin and then you ran a cleanup and deleted it. I need you to put it back or what have you. Well, you can even start a new process if you wanted to. You may have seen that little refresh there. So it is refreshing all of the active service or processes in real time. So if I go into, I forget what Chrome is. So if I go into, here, let me go into just run, or Windows Explorer. If I go into C, I think it's x86. Could be wrong. Yeah, I don't remember even where Chrome is, but I used to do this. And you can actually put the path in the chat if you know where it is. But if you know where the executable is, you could effectively say start new, and then what you're going to do is put in the path of the executable and even launch Chrome for the end user. A lot of times they think this is like witchcraft, right? I'm going to be able to, from my office, remotely be able to pull up your tool for you, right? So all you really need is the path, right? Now, of course, you're going to be able to come in and do other things as well. You can, again, start new or end. You can change the priority as well. If you're noticing a process is just misbehaving or taking up a lot of resources or what have you, or bogging down the disk, well, what I can do is sort. Let me try that the other way. And then maybe I'm not going to put my agent into low, but if I come into WMI, well, maybe I want to put that into, above normal, right? Then from here, what you're going to do is cruise through the other options, right? Registry. Of course, if you're familiar with the registry, like hopefully all of us are, this is a technical boot camp, you're going to hop into something like HKey local machine, go into software, and then what I can do here is find something like enable technologies, and then I can create a new value if I wanted to, say a new binary value or D-word. And then from there, I can type in the new key and give it the status, right? It's something that easy, right? Again, there might be a particular fix that you have to put on the agent. Under applications, you can see what applications are installed. Now this is my lab, so there's not a whole lot of things installed. But if I wanted to, I could even request uninstall or install patch. Now, oh, I selected the wrong one. So I can now request uninstall. As you can see, that is green right here. And if you have any third-party products installed, like Putty or Java or what have you, you can even patch them through this method as well. Okay. So if I want to come in here, now I'm not going to request uninstall on this, just kind of show you the functionality, but like before, it does kind of turn green and actually remove the product. Okay, we can see what startup applications are actually running on boot, right? So we can see the DNS tray icon. So say I'm going to actually turn that off. And then I'm in my tray icon down on my other screen. It's not on this one. It would actually show you that it's gone. Okay. And again, you could come back and re-enable it. Now I can see what printers are installed. Now, if you've ever done any printer troubleshooting, and if you have, I feel sorry for you, only because printers are a bit of a pain. You know, one of my first technical jobs was working for HP in their DeskJet and inkjet line over, well, very close to 20 years ago, 2001. So it was over 20 years, sorry. I had to kind of figure out the math there. But if I had any printers installed in this lab device, you would see them here. Now, of course, there is none because, again, it's a lab and there's nothing really kind of here except the Microsoft XPS document writer. So if I wanted to, and this was an actual printer, I could even, install the driver and set the default and then even print the test page for them, right? So if I print the test page, it would then open the XPS document writer on their screen or what have you. Okay? A handy little feature when you're doing any printer troubleshooting. What else? Let's go into command prompt. Now we can start the session. And again, this particular lab is in a virtual machine in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm up here in the Great White North of Canada, in Ottawa. So what I can do is, type in any command, right? And then if I want, I can even go into PowerShell mode, and I can get service, right? So a lot of handy little features in here that you're going to be able to use to be able to do your troubleshooting. Now you might ask, well, you can do PowerShell through this. Not quite the same. I want an actual PowerShell mode, right? We could switch this into PowerShell mode so I can get IntelliSense and a lot of other stuff. Now, as you can see, there's no scrolling. What I get is what I get. I can go into history, right? And it will give me a text file that I can download to show me all my commands and the output and everything else, right? So it is decent. And file system, very straightforward here. All you're going to do is look at your local or the remote computer. Let's say I want to go into temp. Again, there's nothing there. I can send a file. I can retrieve a file, right? Pretty handy stuff. So if I want to pull a particular log, like agent insttime.dat, I can pull that and retrieve it. And then what it's going to do is download it to my computer locally. So I can obviously do some troubleshooting. Now, last but least is this. So yes, we give you all of these different methods of troubleshooting remotely, but say you have a particular cleanup script or something that's going to clean up the disk or improve the performance of the endpoint. Well, all you need to do is now simply choose it. Okay, the desktop cleanup routine. Now, this may not be native to your End Central, but this is the one that's in my lab. So focus on drive letter C, and then all I have to do is click run. Now it's going to go through, and depending on how long this takes, usually a cleanup can take anywhere from a minute to 5 to 10 or 15. I mean, we're not doing a disk defrag or anything like that. But again, you can sit here and refresh now, and you can see that it's processing. It's going to go through the entire script. And again, it does say success. And then we've got all this timestamp, right? Now, everything I've shown you today is now in, sorry, I lost my cursor, in here. So you can see that just by today, right? I restarted services and all these different things, right? All these actions. So I can now select these actions and say, create ticket. The customer called me on the phone. They sent a text to me and said, hey, I'm having a problem with QuickBooks. Can you look at it? Well, okay, no problem. Let me look at it. Even my guys, when I was the director of managed services for that MSP, all of my guys were giving out their cell phone numbers. I told them not to because people obviously abuse it, but it's one of those things where I can come in and create a ticket for this. So I'm just going to give it a title. So something like that, right? Give a description, 1, 2, 3, 4, and put in some notes. Okay, and then what we're going to do is map it to important. and then we're done. Provided that my integration still works. I don't know if it does because I was getting some errors on that before. Ooh, cool. It has fixed itself. So I do have ConnectWise Manage, and then what I can do is come into this ticket. So if I want, I can click OK. I can go into tickets, and if there was any previously open tickets, I could go there. Otherwise, I would go into ConnectWise Manage and pull that up. Let me just go back here, and this is 1351. I'm gonna make sure if it's, I think it's the previous tickets, yes, right? But I can also create tickets from this view as well, right? This is handy because if they have repeated QuickBooks issues, you can see the last 5, say, QuickBooks problems, or say there's 4 QuickBooks problem and what other issue. At least you can get a sense of what is going on and even open up those tickets if they're there, you know, get some history, troubleshooting, and try to figure out what your next steps are going to be. Okay. Now, a little lay of the land, because we're in this view, is when you're troubleshooting, obviously one of the best practices that I used to teach my team was getting background information before you start talking to a user. You know, if you're like me, you're a little more extroverted, you like chatting, you like, you know, calling the user and having some back and forth, you find that's a lot easier. Well, sometimes that's also interruptive to the end user. So what you're going to want to do is maybe get some background information, like what processes are chewing up, or maybe this is spiked up to 100%. At least you can hover and get an idea. Okay, well, you know, this is the Rapid7 agent or Sentinel-1. It must be doing a scan or something, right? So you can kind of see what is going on in real time. You can see what processes or services, right? You can see what's installed or what's patched or what have you. And then you can start clicking through and figuring out, okay, well, I want to see all the installed applications. Here they all are. Now, people ask me all the time, well, in the previous view, you know, I didn't see all of these Microsoft Visual C++ blah, blah, blahs, right? This is true. So let's go back to Tools, Applications, and you do not have them except for a couple of these, right? So it's based on the registry that we're querying, right? There is a known, I think it's a WIL64 value, where we're actually pulling this from the registry, and it is slightly different natively when we go into Asset and here, okay? This is actually pulling it from, if you ever go to Add Remove Programs or Programs and Features, it's actually pulling it from there. So those are the differences there. You might see a bit of a delta. This one right here is my favorite view if I just want to see what's installed. If I need to do an action, right, I'll then come in here and remove it, right, or uninstall it or what have you if I can. Okay. One thing just to kind of reiterate is just in case if you're a service delivery manager or someone who's looking after a tech team, a lot of people focus on remote control. They want remote control to just work and do as they need and blah, blah, blah. Understood, right? Again, remote control is a form of interruption as well, either to the endpoint or to the end user, because typically you're going to have to chat with them or you're going to have to call them on the phone and you're going to have to work one-on-one, right? Now we're going to get to remote control, but my point is that as you're troubleshooting, you also want to look to automation, right? You should have a series of automations every month built into your N-Central that are fixing problems, repeat issues. Now, the first question I get is, well, how do I know what's a repeat issue? That is where your ITSM or your PSA comes into play. Hopefully they report on trends, right, within your tickets. And usually that's based on categorization. So for example, the first dropdown might be here. I even forget what the first dropdown in ConnectWise is. If I go to PSA integration, I go to ticketing, I'll click add, and the first one would be something like, let me just choose the service board here. Okay, so we've got service type and subservice type. So say my service type is network and my other one is switch, right? those kinds of things. So that is how the categorization goes, and you can find all the switch issues and see if there's any common themes and blah, blah, blah. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about remote control. So a good segue, we were just talking about it for a sec. Let's go back to it, okay? So what is remote control? Obviously in N-central, we call it take control. Remote control to a device, no matter where it is in the world. So if you're one of those global MSPs like I was, now we were a Canadian MSP here in Ottawa, but we had customers in the UK, we had plenty of customers in the United States. So again, international MSP, but you may have customers in APAC or EMEA. So it's one of those things where yes, you can effectively remote control anywhere, because based on the technology, it reaches out to what is called either a socket server or it geolocates a server and negotiates based on latency in your request. Oh, my audio did die. I just saw, okay, I just got a pop-up saying my audio was restored. Can you hear me okay? Give me 1 sec. Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate that. So again, geolocation of the servers that we have globally. Like again, if you're going to remote control to a device in Australia, and you're sitting here where I am in Ottawa, Canada, well then when I request that agent, it knows based on IP and public IP on what server to hit to negotiate the best connection. Okay, geolocation. 6 options available. Ensuring remote control is available for the majority of devices and in Central. So again, you can see here there's custom. Don't really use custom too much anymore. You have some kind of custom solution where you can launch the executable. You could map it here. There's obviously remote desktop. So these two are the most common ones that I use. There's SSH, Telnet to network devices. And if you have like a firewall that has a web interface, like a Fortinet or a Sonic wall, you can also use that to remote control to your network devices, okay? Now, if you're using like a HP Pro Curve, you're probably going to launch SSH and, ask it to launch PuTTY for you. So again, say to you click kind of thing, right? You're not having to click into the start menu and type in PuTTY, and click on the executable, and Central's going to do that for you because it's right there in front of you, okay? And this does not require any inbound firewalls to work. All you need is 443. That's it. Done. Now, when can and should you use it? Okay. When you can't resolve issues through N-central. Now, I took you through the toolbox. Those are all of your kind of management functions. So say you have no automation that's going to fix the problem, or processes and services aren't going to restart and magically fix the problem either. You actually have to hop into the device and remote control. Use take control for Windows and Macs. There is not, actually there is. If you want Linux remote control, there is an agent for that, but it is not in N-central. It's in our standalone product. It's one of the differentiators of that standalone feature. So we do have take control standalone, and that is going to give you the ability to give people codes or embed it into your website. There's just a lot more external integrations that you can do with it. This will allow you to SSH and Telnet to your network devices, use web to connect to printers or management web pages, HP Insight or Dell Open Manage, iDRAX or ILOs, right? So you can use that web functionality as well. Now, one problem I have today is that I broke that on my server. So I'm not gonna be able to show you the web connection or SSH or what have you. And I'll even show you that I broke it. But it's one of those things where take control is at least still working, and that is going to be the bulk of this. So let me go back and demo that for you. Okay, so let's go here. And now I'm going to show you what's not working. So let me come back here, reset the filter, I'll go to one of my favorite network devices, which is, where is my favorite network device here? I'll go to my HP Pro Curve. And then if I wanted to remote control to that using SSH, it's going to tell me unknown error. Now, this is very specific to the version I'm on. Okay, I also do a lot of beta builds and everything else. So it's broken on my server. So I apologize. But the good news is if I want to come down to, let's go into 1351. If I want to remote control to this device using take control, I can now do that. You're going to see where it does a web launcher. Okay, Chrome is now saying, hey, you've clicked into this. Do you want to, right? Now, if you don't, if this is your first time using N-central and you don't have the viewer because you need something locally to run take control, is that you're going to click here, download take control, install it into your computer, and then you can click on launch. Now, I'm also just going to click on this. And of course, it's opening up on my other screen. Let me pull that over here. And usually within about 5 seconds, like if you're in the continental US, usually most of this happens within 5 to 7 seconds. At the 7 at the very kind of tail end. Usually it's a few seconds, right? But I'm up here in the Great White North, clicking into these lab devices in Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay, so I'm going to then do a Control-Delete. Now, one thing people ask me all the time is, what if I don't want to launch into a remote desktop? Well, maybe I want to just go behind the scenes and very quickly look at the registry, or maybe you're going to look at system info. That's going to be your default view, right? So you can change that. I haven't changed it in a long time, but you can. Where is it here? I've actually forgotten where it is. It is, nope. There is a default setting for this. Let me come in, find it. There. No, that's for printers. Well, hell, I don't know what I did with it. I've even forgotten where it is, but you can switch it. And there is a document, so you will be able to find this. My bad, they move things around on me all the time, and I'm not always in take control. So it's one of those things that I've actually misplaced it, where it actually is. Not a big deal. You know you can do it. If you can't, ask support, they'll tell you how to do it. The good news is we can do it. Now, for example, maybe this is your default view because you just want to get some background information. You don't want to interrupt the end user, right? So let me just put in my password. So I'm logged in. I'm seeing exactly what Jason Murphy is doing on this device. I can see, you know, he's in Chrome, he's in Cookbook or QuickBooks or what have you. Well, my default view is now this. I've launched into this view. Now I can see some information, like I can see the operating system, you know, last time it was booted up, and I can see what's going on with CPU and memory and disk and everything else. It's down here is disk. So I can get some background information because I'm already, oh no, okay, sorry, my apologies. Let me just try, give me 1 second, guys and girls, my apologies. I do apologize for any of the audio issues I'm having. Let's get back to it. Obviously, we've got system info. You've got some background here. We can, again, hop into the registry just like we did in N-central. So maybe you're already in, you know, take control. So you can actually start, you know, changing things. Like, you know, you can hop into security and go into enable. And like the use case before, we can now add a new string binary D word, right? And there we go. I can call it whatever I want, give it a new value, right? So I do not want to break this, so I'm going to delete this. There we go, done. All right, so that's basically it in terms of, you know, remote registry. There is file transfers as well. So this is pretty nifty stuff. So again, it's looking at my local system, and then it's also now giving me the remote device. So this server. So now I can come into temp, and you can see that, again, you know, earlier I could retrieve things. All I need to do is drag and drop it over to my machine, or let me just go to the top here. Or what I can do is take, I'm going to give this PDF, my onboarding PDF, I'm going to put that over here. So I'm going to drag it right in here. And then it's going to do effectively what is a FTP transfer. Done. within seconds, right? So a nice quick server transfer, okay? That's it, nice and easy. And it does exactly what you needed to in terms of file transfers. Charade. When we use System Shell by default, it is opening command prompt in interactive mode. Is there any way to start the command prompt as compatibility mode by default? I will say it is a possibility, but it's not something that I know off the top of my head. I would check with support because, believe it or not, there are a lot of settings that you can modify to be your default just by modifying an INI, right? So I would say it is a possibility. Just check with support. Okay, Sharad. System shell. Now, this gives you command prompt out of the gates. Now, I don't want to use command prompt, right? Well, as you can see that it's now loading PowerShell for me, so as a default. And if I want, I can also go into, you can see that there is standard command prompt compatibility mode, right? So you can do that. Or you can go directly into start interactive PowerShell. Now this is where I want to be, right? Exactly where I want to be. And then I can type in any commands. There we go. And then pulls up all my services, right? And you can, and it's got the same kind of functionality, right? So you can use your up arrows and down arrows to get back to the command. If I want to do something like IP big, right? Good to go. So, for the most part, PowerShell does recognize a lot of the Windows command options as well. So I can go back to those and right now, does it have IntelliSense? No, right? It doesn't. It's not smart enough to kind of suggest what my next thing should be. So if I was to do something like that, it's not telling me what other options there might be. So IntelliSense brings a lot more functionality. I'm hoping we get there eventually. Okay. All right. So that is remote control. And now let's hop into this. What was I doing before? I was looking at Process Explorer. That's fine. Okay. So if I just want to minimize this, and we'll get out of Edge and server management. Obviously, what you can see here is I am in the desktop view of Windows. Again, this is just a vanilla server that I have. Not doing anything but running a Windows agent so I can show that I have servers. But from here, you have straight away the same functionality you would as if you were the logged in user. Now, there are a lot of other things you may need to do, right? So this is where you have commands, right? Windows command. You may even want to show a blank screen on their end. So you can completely administrative block or blank out their screen so that you can paste in a password or use your password or what have you. There are interactions as well, like take screenshots, a laser pointer. So sometimes you just say, well, Sandra, all you have to do is put that file directly in the recycle bin. You take it, drag and drop, right? So again, there's some kind of educational features to this. If you want, I'm going to take that off. And then what I'm going to do here is also copy and paste. There is Control-C, Control-V options. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, depending on what you're trying to use them in. Like if you need to copy and paste a password, sometimes you have to use the send local, right? Your clipboard to get it over into the application. So I find that it doesn't always work, but works in most cases. Again, clear clipboard, you effectively, if you're pasting in a password into someone else's computer, it is cached in their clipboard, right? So the last thing you're going to do is obviously clear that out. And then you've got remote printing and keyboard mapping and everything else, okay? So, and then once you're done, Sandra's now gone away. She's going to take a lunch. What you're going to be able to do is lock that remote operating system so that, her colleague walks by and doesn't see what may be open, okay? And that's it. That's remote control, effectively. let's talk about the N-central Audit Trail. One of the most highly requested features in N-central in 2023 has been, I need auditing. Well, I can't solve that for you today, but we do have some things. So let me show you what I mean. It's not perfect, but it may at least help you along the way until we get deeper auditing put into N-central. So for example, if I come into Enable, the SO, I want to go down to, I'll just collapse this, open up reports. I'm going to go to particular customer. I'll go into Celtic Cider because I know that's what Paul uses. So what I'll do here is I'll go into, is it administrative? Yes, system audit. And then from there, I can back this up. Let's go back into May 1st. And I can see things like additions to the systems, modification, deletion, user sign in, sign out. And then what I can do is, view that report. Now, again, this is log and successful ID based on a GUID. Now, that is usually the challenge that a lot of our partners have, is like it doesn't give you a whole lot of information. Now, if I pull this up to the service organization, so basically that's up based on customer level, right? So if I come into administrative, system audit, we go back to May 1st, and I go into user sign in, all customers, maximum 2,000. Well, then I'm going to view. And then you can see all the people who have signed in along the way. Now, you don't see me for a good reason. The reason being is I signed in at the system level. So you could even come in here. There is no administrative report for the system level. I don't believe that's why. So hopefully you're not like me and trying to bypass things. It's not that I'm bypassing it. It's just that I don't use I go into a lot of, I'm the one who runs the server. So it's like Paul and Mark can go right into the lab view. I'm going into kind of everything because I help other teams who are in here. Part of my job. Okay, so let's go back into SO level. And let's go into administrative again. And again, you may see modifications to the system. Now, the problem with this is, and let me go back a month. Well, that should be good enough. If I go view, right? The only person who really understands what this is support. So what I can tell you, it says Paul Kelly made a modification to the system on June 23rd at 5:11 p.m. But problem is user config modification when based on value, customer where, on user ID, you're never going to understand what this is. So you may have to get support involved to really understand what a lot of this is doing. This is why we're having a revamped auditing that is coming up, hopefully by the end of this year. The reason being is that we want to give more value to our partners to be able to either log information into a SIM, because that's really important. You want to see who's logged in, when they're logged in, how many times, how many failed passwords, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the kind of stuff that may be coming down the pipe in the future. Let's go back here. Now, what is it? A log of actions taken against an individual device. When can you use it? Check to see what previous actions have been taken against the device. Now, one other auditing I do want to kind of show you here that I kind of took you into earlier is at that device level. So if I come into the device, and let's go down to just into a server here. Now, I don't know if anybody's touched this device or not. Oh, there's a lot of stuff in here. So again, you can look and say, well, the ticket says that Jason fixed the problem 2 weeks ago or a month ago. Well, let's see what he did. Well, then you get to go back and see all the different things that he did. Oh, he ran a BitLocker recovery, script or something like that. Okay, cool, right? Or he used remote control. right? And then you can see the session logs. He was, remote controlled for 30 minutes or what have you. And they pulls up all of this information, right? You can see what events happened, that kind of stuff, right? So it gives you a little bit of auditing based on even the remote control session. And that's it. That's effectively auditing in N-central. Every time you use tools or any kind of management feature, it is logged. Domain user management. So one really kind of overlooked, kind of function or feature in N-central is this. Now, the reason being is much of your end users do not have on-premise domains. Now, if you're like me, you still have customers that have some, right? Effectively 2016, or even maybe you're running it on 2019, but they have a on-premise domain. So if you want, what you can do, I'll just show you here, is this has an automatic, as long as you're putting an agent on the Active Directory server or the domain server, it will actually collate and pull in all of those users there for you, okay? Why should you use it? You can use it to reset AD user passwords, unlock user accounts, and enable and disable user passwords. Now, think of this workflow. Boss calls you at 8 p.m. says, oh, they just fired Amber today at XYZ, company, right? You're at home, you're having dinner with your family, it's a late day. Are you going to open your laptop, VPN into work and then negotiate a remote control session and all that stuff? No, of course not. What you're able to do, let's just get into it. And I was just picking on you, Amber. Nobody's going to fire you. I'm just kidding. But it's one of those things where if you come into here, configuration, and you click on domain user management. Now I only have one domain in my N-central, which is Celtic.local. But you can see down here, we've got Jason Tanguay, which by the way is a hybrid of Jason and Marc-Andre. But when you come in here, you can see that we've got him. And then what I can quickly do very, very quickly is simply just disable the account. It's done, right? And it says disabled over here. It's actually disabled, okay? Now, maybe somebody is locked out or what have you, you can reset the password as well. Now, all you have to do is, give them a password, unlock the account, for example, and you're done. So there's a lot of great speedy things that you can do just by, pulling this up on your tablet, right? Open up Chrome, pull it up on your iPad, log into N-central, disable the fired user from ABC company. We'll pick on Sherrod. They fired Sherrod. All right, so it's one of those things where, this kind of stuff happens all of the time, right? So being able to get into features very, very quickly to kind of get things done so you can move on with your life. So that's a handy one, okay? People ask me all the time, well, how the frick do I create a user? Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that through here. I hoped we would actually build that in, but we weren't able to. Now, one thing I will tell you is that we do have automation for that. So if you wanted to come in and run an automation policy and you wanted to say, well, I want to create an AD user, okay? So I can go, don't tell me I don't have it in here anymore. I don't, but I did have create AD user. It is on the cookbook. So there is a script for this. I just haven't added it in my N-central. I apologize, but download it and it's universal. All you have to do is specify the domain, first name, last name, any of the additional information that comes with the user account, like title and address and all the other stuff. You can bypass a lot of that stuff, but this is how you would do it, is using this. And that's it. Target the domain controller, schedule it for now or later tonight, and send yourself a notification. That's it. That is the use case around creating a user. Filters. One of the, let's call it unsung heroes of N-central. People understand what filters are, right? Plainly in their head, what a filter is. It's, you've got vast criteria and trying to filter down, right? It doesn't even matter in N-central. Universally, applications use filtering all of the time, right? It's a way to narrow down the scope, right? Servers, workstations, laptops, network devices, whatever, maybe custom device class you've built. This is how you do it. Now, what are they, right? This is a group of devices. That's effectively what this is. It's just going to kind of group things the way you need to. Filters, when can and should you use them? Filters are a key element of N-central. There are pre-built filters in N-central, and you can create your own. Please do. They can be used for all sorts of things. And I'm going to give you those use cases as I kind of go into N-central. Display and dashboard purposes, grouping of devices for patch, deploying scripts and software devices, and I'm going to demo it. And I'm actually going to demo this one here. So we're going to build a filter to filter Dell laptops. So let me just do that now, boom. And then what I'm going to do is going to filter. I'm going to click add. First thing I'm going to do is choose a device, right? So that's how I'm going to start. I'm not going to choose monitoring or networking or OS. I'm going to start with device. Then I'm going to go down to class. Then I'm going to go equal to, and it pulls all of my device classes in here. So if I want to do workstation, I can do that. Oh, I don't know what happened there, but I'm going to choose laptop. And then I'm going to do, sorry, use cases right here. Hardware, system manufacturer contains, okay? Go back. Ooh, clicked on the wrong browser. I don't know why I have two open. Okay. Sorry. Wow. Okay. Hardware, system manufacturer. There we go. Hardware. System manufacturer. Let's do this. It should be down here. Contains. And we go Dell. Now I know I have a Dell laptop, so I should be good. But if I'm not, it'll tell me. Open up the ribbon to the right or click on preview. It will tell me all of my Dell laptops in N-central. Here they all are. Great. But what if you have a customer who isn't part of your Dell stack? They're brandly new onboarded. You want to kind of understand what is kind of out there, right? They're going to purchase a laptop or two a month until they can replace them, because as well as I do, they're not buying them all at once. Sometimes you get lucky on that. They'll do a full refresh, but very rare. But it's one of those things that you can even come in and flip this on its head and say, does not contain. And there's my Toshiba or my iPad or whatever, right? So it'll show me on my laptops that do not have Dell, right? I know what I have to refresh at my customer. So this is a handy way of doing Delta changes very quickly. Do they have it? Do they not, right? It's like equal to or greater than or less than, right? So those are all the options that you want to get very, very familiar with. Now, I use contain a lot, and there's some danger in doing this, because if there is potentially another manufacturer that has lowercase DELL in its manufacturer name, you will bleed into that. So it's not smart enough to go something like quotes Dell, right? Because it's a contains, it's not this specific. Otherwise you would go into equal to Dell, and if I click preview, it doesn't work. Why? Because the manufacturer isn't just DELL. It's probably Dell USA Corporation, comma, INC period, or something like that. I'm not even going to look, but it's more than just Dell, right? So it's one of those things where you want to be able to ensure that you're capturing the right information. So sometimes I actually go, and one thing you need to be careful of is, today it might be Dell USA Corporation, comma, INC period, but 3 years ago it was just Dell Corp period. And if you ever worked with other software platforms, you've seen this probably 100 times. So I'm probably preaching to the choir, but people ask me all the time, like, I know your thing's broken. I'm doing a contained, it's not finding del, you know, that kind of thing. Or I'm doing an equal to and it's not finding everything. I'm like, dude, it's because, you know, the device is 4 years old. It doesn't say it. So it's one of those things that this does work, but you have to also understand that some things do change over time. Okay, that's my little rant on that. Now, the hardest thing about building filters is understanding the logic that goes into building them, right? We have an advanced button. So you have A, B, A or B, and C or D, or A or B and C or D or E, or what you can do is build your own custom expression. So you can go, you know, something like A, D, and E, right? And then you can generate that, right? So all of that comes down right here. Now, again, you can see that I do A and B and D and E. So you can even, you know, fiddle with this to get it to work the way you want to. Now, it's really important because as you're assembling more and more criteria, you have to know when to use an and an or. Now, it sounds pretty simple. You know what an and is and an or is, right? But unless you really think about it, unless you have a background in logic, like if you can code, you understand like and. Until you think about what an or is, right? You're doing a compare effectively, right? This and or that. Okay, that's filters, right? Now, again, one of the hardest things about filtering is understanding all of the stuff that you can assemble, right? Like if I wanted to list every single Windows 7 OS, I can do that. Yeah, let me just refresh this really quick. I go into OS, not org, OS, and then I can go into, where is Windows operating system equal to, and then every operating system that N-Central can handle is in here. Okay, so again, if you wanted to build all the Windows 7, so where's Windows 7? They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like you can include all of them, right? So maybe you're building a Windows 7 filter, right? We've already done that for you, but you know, Windows 8, Windows 10, 2003, it's all in here. Okay, so it's one of those things where you want to get more and more familiar, and you would be surprised, like just using this, how you can actually group devices in rules so that you can automate in certain groups of devices within certain customers. So it's really, really handy. Dashboards. Now, dashboards are pretty simple in N-Central, but I don't like how we do dashboards, especially out of the box, right? So if you come into devices, for example, devices, printers, or servers, you can see all of these blank garbage areas. Please get rid of it, right? Because this is just servers. Well, do you need to know every single CPU disk, memory, patch, Windows service, and you know, HTTP and HTTPS? Like, there's no value there. Consolidate and make dashboards work for you. And there's no shortage. You can make 100 dashboards if you want. But for example, when I build my patch servers, or when I do any patch dashboard, I will make, there's 4 things that I have on every single Windows endpoint: agent status, patch status v2, reboot required every single time, and uptime. And I do that on every single device. I can't show you why, because usually I can, because I'll have like reboot required in patch status, but then it'll be green here, because again, we're using 2 different flags. One is a patch status flag and the other one is a Windows flag, and sometimes they don't always alert the same, okay? But this is what I use. If I start seeing devices that have, you know, blown patch, but the uptime is 60 days, well, nobody's rebooting this device. So these are a way to ensure quality, to get to the source of the problem very, very quickly. So if you're going to take anything from today's conversation, please understand that there is a lot of power here. You just need to kind of either do a cleanup of what we have or even build your own. All you have to do is come into Manage Dashboard, build your filter, okay? Or maybe it's pre-built. So say I go into Mac, and then I go into my monitoring options, and I go into agent status, something like that. And then I can preview it and see all of the agent stuff, or all of the disk, or maybe various folders, or what have you, on a Mac, right? So it's all there at your fingertips. You just kind of have to assemble it the way you want to. And that's dashboards. System tray icon. Now I'm going to have to show you my other screen here, because that's where my sys tray icon is. I should actually just put it on big monitor beside me, but I don't know why I haven't. Let me share the other screen. So here's my Head Nerds logo, right? So that is a section. This is another section, so you can customize the view. Maybe you don't want IPv6, only IPv4. Most of this is by default, but you can, there's some flexible options. But again, when you download the Connect to Help tray icon, basically what it's going to do is walk you through how to build this, how to brand it, how it's going to teach you how to, put in your email, right? Or your website or what have you, right? So when I click on send email, it's going to say, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to show you the problem. And then I'm going to type in something like bad Googling, right? I'm not going to actually hit that, but I am going to stop. It's going to take all of those screenshots for every second that I was doing it here. And then there, it's going to open up the email over here. And then tell me a description of the problem. Bad Google doesn't do anything, or it brings me to a bad web page. Are you able to recreate the problem? I've got your screenshots. It's all here, right? But it's all customizable is my point, right? And then basically they can send you an email and log a ticket within your ConnectWise or Autotask or whatever ITSM that you're using. Okay, let me have a sip of water here. Okay, now, Amber has a great question. Are you able to elaborate on why you keep reboot required status visible? Because oftentimes Windows will say there's a reboot, but not patch. And oftentimes patch will say there's a reboot and not Windows. So between those two, I like using both. That way, when I see that patches have failed, so if I've got patches failed, then I also have one of those two flags, either from PME or from the reboot required monitor. If I see one of those flagged, and yet the device has been up also for 20 days or 40 days or whatever, I can tell you where the problem is really, really quickly. But probably the device needs a reboot, right? So, and oftentimes if you just add in PME, it will show you that, yes, you need patches installed, and the device has been up for 20 days, but sometimes that doesn't resonate as a problem. But if you have both those reboot required, one from PME and also the additional reboot required status, that kind of tells me exactly what is going on. Anyways, hopefully that gives you enough to go on, Amber. Okay, so schedule task profiles. Okay, so configuration, schedule tasks. Most of you have seen the scripted software repository. Most of you use the actions menu to run automation, even though I try to avoid that menu at all costs when I can, because if I'm doing things right, if I ever want to do something again, for example, when I onboard, I've got Cisco Umbrella, or I've got DNS filter, I've got threat locker, or I've got a mid-buy request, or I've got a lot of, listen, you've got your own technology stack. Amber's technology stack is never going to be the same as Billy's, which is never going to be the same as Sharad's, right? But you do have a technology stack, and you deploy that to your customers because to you, agents is money, right? It's the visibility and remote tools. It's the protection. It's the DNS protection, right? It's a lot of different things. Agents do a lot of different stuff, but remote control. So these are all important features that your customer is paying you for. So you have to ensure that they're working, and you have to ensure that they're deployed, right? Every single time, no matter what. This is why you want to come into a scheduled task profile. Now, I'm going to break down a bunch of stuff. I know there's a bunch of slides ahead of me for rules and everything else, but I want to kind of show you an all-encompassing way to kind of understand what scheduled task profiles are in N-central and how important they are. So if you have your technology stack that you're going to onboard into your customer, the first thing you need to do is just, deploy the probe, do a scan, push the agent out to your devices. And what should happen is that it's going to recognize that they don't have Cylance installed, right? Now, what this is going to do, push Cylance, is that maybe it's going to look for a particular third-party EDR, uninstall it, even though that's not very easy. Or you're going to do that manually, and then you're going to add in the agent. But effectively, what this is going to do is push in Cylance, right? So based on the scripting that's in here, now this is simply just going to push the Cylance. That's all it does. It's just a DMG for installing it into a Mac. Now, I make this recur because if somebody removes it, my scripting, in here, will also look for conditionals. Is the registry key there? Is the Cylance folder there? Is what other conditionals? Process, service, I can name 5 or 7 different things. But if all of those conditions are not satisfied, I know it's not there, right? Service isn't running, process isn't running, folder's not there, registry key is not there, blah, blah, blah. Then what I'm going to do is force install it. That is how scheduled task profiles work. Let me show you why. Because if I come into monitoring and rules, now people ask me all the time, can I modify the rule for a server or what have you? Of course you can. Now, there are core rules in N-central, like workstation, laptop, server, VMware, what have you. You may want to or may not want to modify those. It's entirely up to you, but there's nothing wrong with adding something like, special automation or your own onboarding rule. So if I put this as, it's called rule. Sorry, I can't type it, but you get the gist. And then what I'm going to do is select my, my filter. Now maybe I've got a custom filter, onboarding or what have you. I'm going to use workstation. I'm only going to do this for ABC, right? Because they're the new customer. Then I'm going to actually go to my scheduled task, and then I'm going to choose, I'm going to push Cylance, and then I'm going to choose public IP once a week, and then I'm going to also choose AV status or something, whatever. So I can choose all of this automation based on how it's been coded. That's an important step, right? You don't want to overlap AV or EDR products. You don't want to try to collide the same application with an install if it's already installed. You have to do the proper conditionals. So there's some, I wouldn't say some danger. You kind of need to know what you're doing in scripting purposes, right? But if you can handle this, you can then use this as a way to make sure that your products are always installed. Okay. And this is from Nate. Is there a guide on how to set up that email button in the tray icon? One of my guys popped into my office and I missed part of that. I like the idea of prompting for screen record and pre-populate email questions. No need to answer. Yeah. Nate, do me a favor, only because after this, I got to hop on another call. Send me an email, please, because otherwise I'll forget 100% after this. It is letter J, MURPHY at n-able.com. I'll give you the information, okay? And again, it goes up for everybody, right? You can always email me. I'm your nerd. So it's letter J, MURPHY, Murphy, at n-able.com. First initial, last name, at n-able.com. All right. I also have another email. It's jason.murphy at n-able.com, but that one it's heavily filtered. So if you use that J Murphy, it goes into an important folder. So I know that I have to get to something by end of day or end of week. Yeah, that's it. Let's go back to, I don't want Reddit. I want this there. Okay. Scheduled task profiles enable you to configure N-central to perform specific maintenance functions and tasks for a one-time or on a recurring basis. It is your all-encompassing way to insert automation and functionality into a rule. When and can and should you use it? Can be used for software deployment when onboarding new devices. Connect to help, right? There's a good one for you, Nate. Every time Nate wants to onboard a new customer, bam, connect to help. And then all you're doing, instead of technology and installation and knocking on people's doors and trying to get stuff installed and bothering through the day, all you need to do is train them on how to use Connect to Help. That's a much easier and much more fun exercise. Automatically run endpoint maintenance, so you can do like an EDR or an AD scan. You got to programmatically script that. Run recurring automation policies to populate custom properties, right? BitLocker keys. If there's anyone on this call that is not exporting BitLocker keys, and if you've never been burned, I can tell you you're lucky. Once upon a time, N-central didn't have custom properties and didn't have automation to take something like what is ever in Windows. It's just a piece of data, metadata. But I can take the key and I can store it in N-central, so that if somebody wipes the drive, accidentally one of my techs, at least I have the same key, right? And the guy goes, oh, I didn't know, right? So it's one of those things where super important in terms of monitoring and also automation, okay? I talked about rules. Rules are the core to automation in N-central, right? Automation for monitoring, automation for automation. Let's say scripted automation. It's there for turning on features to ensure that a professional license is turned on. It's there to make sure that patch is there or third-party patch is there. And rules effectively are the core to N-central. Rules work in conjunction with filters to perform immediate and scheduled tasks, deploying monitoring and enabling of features. Okay. Topology maps. Okay. Topology Maps allows you to scan your network of devices and visualize it by adding or building a topology map of the network, okay? Now, there isn't a whole lot of different types of networks. They're all basically stars, but it is what it is. When can and should you use it? Get a visual view of your customers' networks. Identify devices not currently managed in N-central. Hey, we've picked up a bunch of stuff, but it's not picking up, something else. Something else is on the network that we're not seeing. Okay, so let me hop into here. Now, I'm assuming that Paul, my colleague Paul, does the morning boot camps. I do the afternoon. I'm going to go to his setup here, Celtic, and I'm going to go to his topology map because I know I haven't built one because I actually had to delete it. So let's go into this. Pretty simple, but we can work from it. Let me try the other one. Well, this is his home network, but it's one of those things where he has the range, 192.168.0.1 to 254, right? You can't see anything that's really managed here. So let me just go back because you can see, P21 green, DC19 red, right? And if you can open this up, you can even get some information about what the device is doing or what have you, right? So maybe you need to add an agent to it, right? And you can hover and click on that as well. Go to device, launch remote control, figure out the problem. Our partners really like Topology Maps in N-central because it's a way to kind of focus a device by device, a network by network, and get things kind of done very quickly. Right? Now you can do effectively the same thing in the all device view or the active issues view, but this kind of gives you a network topology view, right? And it's kind of handy to have, things kind of more at your fingertips. Okay. That's basically it, right? Now you can go to a hierarchy, grid view. Bam. That's it. Nice and easy. Let me just reset here. And I'm going to go to my tray research 1 second here. I want to see if I have it there. I don't. I did delete it. I thought I did. So that's why when I was doing this boot camp, I was like, oh no, I didn't reset this up. Pretty straightforward though. All I have to do is add a job, give it a name, give it a description, do it for tray. I don't have any sites, but I do have a probe. Choose your probe, select your network. What you're going to do is subnets. You can have 1, you can have 6, whatever. So if I go subnet, I go 50. I'll click OK. Oh, net mask is 0. There we go. Again, glasses. Next. And then credentials, I can add in SNMP, WMI, VMware. I would love if the probe would have all this. Click next. Advanced settings, number of hops, right? Ignore nodes that only respond to ICMP. Don't use bridge table information. You may want to use that. Next, schedule now, one time. So if you're working at 8 p.m. and you do now, it's going to happen every day or today at 8 p.m. Same thing with recurring, right? If you're doing a recurring job, you want your start time not to be 8 p.m. Maybe you're going to do this at 11 a.m., right? When everything's on and running and working, right? Got your email, Nate. We'll chat soon. Okay, so, and then you're going to do a summary. Boom. Here you go. That's it. That's network topology maps. It just works as you want it to.